In the Calaveras County frog jumping competition, the prize for longest jump is $750. However, there's a $5,000 prize available for any frog that beats the 1986 record of 21 feet, 5 3/4 inches set by Rosie the Ribbitor.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I love my little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow 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 wow. Daddy wasn't
Hello, and welcome to the
finding a
Mochiverse. I'm
bow
Linette,
wow.
And I'm Skip.
Daddy
and
wasn't
today
finding a
we're
bow
not going to be
wow.
dark and gloomy. We're going to talk about something kind of fun.
The weird world of sports.
The weird world of sports. So this kind of came to me. I was just sort of looking around trying to figure out what to talk about. And I just sort of happened upon, I can't remember which one it was first. I think it might have been the first one we're going to talk about. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, that's a great topic. We'll have a lot of interesting things to talk about with that one. So I thought it would be cool. To just talk about a few of the weird competitions and weird sports that are out there. And it's around the world. But with our list today, you're probably going to find pretty quickly that these are all concentrated in England.
Yeah, yeah.
Like at first I was like, oh, Finland, whatever. But then like every single other one I found was England because listen, I love it. I've never been to England, but I've researched enough of it. I've seen enough of it to know a lot about it, and it's beautiful in the country, but apparently you got to find ways to amuse yourself in the country.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, we lived in the country for a while, and we lived in probably what the closest I would think that I lived to a rural area. You guys lived in more rural area afterwards, but like we lived in Raleigh, there was like nothing. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like walking around throwing sticks into a brook.
Yeah. And there were, and 8 to 10 miles to get to a grocery store. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. We had to go really far. I mean, I remember I was 15 before McDonald's came to town, and we didn't have the grocery store until like what was that, like a year after we moved in? They got
something
the
like that. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
market basket. Gotta have a market basket.
That's right.
Before that, it was like probably Purity Supreme or Stop and Shop or Shaw's or whatever.
Shaw's, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yep. All those New England grocery stores that everybody will be very familiar with.
Right.
But yeah, so rural areas, I guess, got to find things to do. So I don't know. Well, you want to just get into it?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah. Why don't you do the first one?
Okay.
Which might just be something that people do just for ha-has, is the mobile home phone thing. Yeah.
Yes. Now that would be a good one. Mobile
Yeah.
home throwing. That's
Yeah.
like that's probably a little harder, but this is
Yeah.
the World Mobile Phone Throwing Championships. And this began in Finland in 2000, which, anybody who's had a mobile phone, which is hopefully everybody, pretty much everybody, knows what it's like to throw one, usually in frustration, right? Or by accident, if you kind of, that thing where you kind of drop your phone a little bit and you're not really doing the smart thing, which is to just let it fall and just let gravity let it fall straight down. You think you're going to be like a hero, and instead of letting it fall, you try to catch it and then end up just launching it across the room into the wall.
Yeah.
That's like so much worse than if it had just fallen on the carpet. You're just like, oh no, it's falling. And then you just like bat it with your arm and it goes 50 feet the other way. But yeah, so this is a real competition in Finland. The participants, they throw their cell phones and they're judged on distance and technique. So technique, I guess, would be like, I don't know, like under over or like, I don't know, you throw it like a boomerang or like a javelin or like
Yeah, yeah. Some people, yeah, they'd throw over their shoulder and all kinds of stuff like that.
oh yeah, like through the
Um,
legs, that
yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So like the old days of baseball when the pitcher used to be the focus of of the action, watching the weird stuff the pitcher would do on the mound, right?
Right, right,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, and there is the world record holder, by the
Hmm.
way, official Guinness World Record throw of 110 meters, which is about 360, 70 feet, something like that. So
That's crazy. I don't know how far I can throw something, but I don't think it's that far. Uh,
yeah, it's yeah, I don't think I could throw that. That 360 feet's a long ways to throw.
yeah.
And actually, yeah, you see like now that people are throwing their phones because they're not working.
Right, exactly. You just get pissed off at it because you can't like it doesn't load fast enough or the internet goes out. They set it up as a real sport though. They have four categories. They have original, which is distance, freestyle, which is based on like, the creativity, aesthetics and things like that. They have a team event, which is like up to three participants. And they have junior, which is 12 and under. And this is the best part. The winner gets a new phone
Uh,
because they're gonna need one.
yeah, you're going to need one afterwards. Yeah, hopefully it'll be a good quality phone, which it probably would be.
I
So
was gonna say it's probably an upgrade, right?
yeah,
You would enter that
yeah,
competition if you've had your phone for a couple years and you just, you really don't want to spend like $1,200 for a new one. So you just, you take your old shitty phone and enter the competition and come up with something creative, right?
yep, yep.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, the next one is fun. I like to tell you a
Yes.
story. Is like we were walking. We have a group of folks who would do walk our dogs together, and they said, "Hey, I heard you doing a podcast, and what's the subject?" And I says, and sometimes you say things off the top of your head, you don't even think about it. And I just said, yeah, yeah. One of the first categories is weird sports, and I says, yeah, the one category we're going to do is wife throwing. And I go,
No, it's not. Whoops.
I got to look like what?
You mean they didn't be like, "Oh, can I join it?" Yeah, I would be an expert at wife throwing.
Anyway, this is it's sort of weird, when I don't think I do it conscientiously, but there are times when I'll say something that's completely opposite of what I mean, and I get like I got part of it right, the wife, but
The wife part.
but it's really a wife carrying, not wife throwing, by the
Wife
way.
carrying, yes,
Yes, yeah,
which is much better. And
yeah,
and presumably you trust your wife further than you can throw her. So wife carrying is much better.
yeah, it is, and it doesn't technically have to be your wife, and
Hmm.
there's all kinds of rules about it. But I thought it'd be interesting just to how I
Yeah,
got it all mixed up.
that's
So
really good. I love that. Let's
yeah,
start one. Let's start one because there's some
yeah,
wives out there.
yeah.
Definitely some wives out there who could use a little throwing.
Put your finger in the nostril and flip them over your shoulder,
Yeah.
stuff like that, So
Or like grab them by the legs and then do the spinning thing to get yourself a little momentum and then let go. I think that would
yeah,
be good.
yeah. They actually, when that's the thing, you see that when some movies do that when somebody's having a fight and they grab somebody by the leg. It's a comedy, obviously, and then
Yeah.
spinning them around like crazy, and then they whip them across the room.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be much more effective. And of course, that one comes from Finland too.
Yep,
Finland, I mean, I imagine Finland is beautiful. It's one of those places where if you like cold things
yep.
and like if you like stark sort of landscapes,
Hmm.
I picture it looking a lot like Iceland, where it's like it's got all this, stone and sort of craggy sort of landscape, and it's cold and I do know that their other pastime in Finland is drinking. They like to drink too, so they're, drinking and coming up with weird competitions. It looks fun, actually.
It
Uh,
does, yeah. And the reason it started, the legend is that it would start that this guy Rokinian
mhm.
and his thieves were accused of stealing food, and women for the villages would assist them. And when they would run away, they'd be carrying the women on their back as they would be running away.
Right.
And another theory is that some men would go to the villages, some villages, and they would steal the other men's wives. that's one other one. The third one is the story was he trained his thieves to carry big heavy sacks on their back, which could eventually evolve into a sport.
I could see
Uh,
that part happening because you're like you're trying to train your group, like, to do something effectively. So you're like, here, have this big sack of potatoes, run over there, run back, run over there, run back, and see who could do it the fastest. And then it would turn into a competition really quickly.
yeah,
Have you ever seen video of the wife carrying
I
contest?
actually have,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting because there is parts of the course that says it's dry obstacles and a wet
Hmm.
obstacle that's
Yeah.
going to be about a meter deep. So you can imagine you're slogging through the mud and stuff like that. And but it's
Well, and one of the ways, like, so there's different ways that you're allowed to carry them. Like, you can either, just like sling them over like a sack of potatoes. You can have them like carrying over the threshold, kind of carrying,
Yep.
or the one where they're on their back like a backpack, but their
Mhm.
head is down. So they're
Yeah,
upside
yeah.
down. So, like, I hope they don't do that part with the water obstacle.
No, I hope not. I have seen the racing. You're right, and there's different ways that people carry the other person, I think is one of the rules is the wife has to weigh at least 108 pounds,
Hmm.
and if they weigh less, they have to carry a rucksack to make up the difference so that they get that to the minimum weight.
Yeah, so it's fair.
And kind of like anything else, and you just never know where this is going to go from. In 2023, apparently the gender part of it was technically erased.
Hmm.
In other words, the wife is a genderless term here. So you just never know how that'll evolve. But regardless, this I thought it was kind of fun, a
Oh,
fun
yeah.
event, and actually, I think I'll go back to the wife throwing would probably be a better
Yeah,
way to
wife
go.
throwing. Well, I also like the rule that it doesn't technically have to be a wife. Uh, the way it's worded is cute. It says, can be a neighbor's wife, or you may have found her further afield.
That's right.
That
That's
lady
another
over
way
there.
of putting it. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but she or he has to be 17 years old, so
Yep.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of weird. And there are other prizes that go along with it. It isn't just finishing the race
Hmm.
the most entertaining couple, the best costume, and the strongest carrier. So there's,
That's
all
pretty
kinds of
cool.
fun things. I'm sure this is, there's a lot of laughing and stuff that goes on. And it's weird because you do say, I do remember watching it, and I don't remember where I saw it.
Hmm.
There was some program
Probably on
which,
a news segment or something.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Hey, the annual wife carrying,
Carrying.
see, I was careful to say that, contest is going on now.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine they dress up like, they're probably all dressed up as like mascots and things, or they're wearing like Halloween costumes, or they're wearing like
Yeah,
something outrageous. And it
matching
does,
costumes. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it does say in the rules twice, like when you look at the rules, to have fun, which is good.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
you know what it reminds me of? Like all of these competitions, when you think about them, they really do remind me of things like that we used to see at the Topsfield Fair and that you see
yeah,
at county fairs where they'll be like, throwing logs or like the hay bale thing where you have to like roll the hay bales across
yeah,
the, or
yeah.
like egg races and things like that. It's like field day. It's like, in school.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's just fun things that doesn't require elaborate equipment. It's like the although we don't reference it here when they have the Scottish get-togethers where they climb a grease pole,
Yeah.
or or run across some logs, or they'll throw a big telephone pole, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or like the
Uh,
strongman competitions with the big tires that they have to
Right, right,
lift and
right.
things like
Yeah,
that.
so you get something that really goes back to harkens back to the days when we weren't sitting in front of our TVs or looking
That's
at our
true.
computers or our phones.
That's true.
Um,
And the big one that we have here that isn't even considered weird anymore is the pumpkin one. I didn't talk about
yeah,
it in the list, but I was kind of thinking about it the whole time. Like, that's not even weird to us. I don't think the pumpkin chunkin thing,
right, right.
where you just take that pumpkin on like a what it's like a big slingshot and you see how far you can, and that
Yeah.
looks like it looks like a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if I could do it
Hmm.
physically. I've seen too many injuries happen to ever try anything like that. I'm a solid ground kind of person, but
Yeah, yeah, ditto, ditto.
yeah.
So
Okay, so the next one is it's
cheese
one that I've known about for a long time. Yeah, it's
cheese
kind of one of my
rolling one.
favorites.
Yeah.
Yes, the cheese
Okay.
rolling. Um, it's just like it's not as simple as you would think just by saying cheese rolling. Like you're not just rolling a wheel of cheese like with your
Hmm.
hands. So, and of course, this takes place in England, and it's a tradition. It's like an old traditional thing. I guess they think it may have started in the 1800s. It's the Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling and Wake. It's held annually in May, and it said Spring Bank Holiday, which I think is in May, and it's held at Brockworth near Gloucester, England. What they do is they race down a 200-yard hill chasing after a rolling wheel of cheese that they've pushed down first. I think it gets like a 1 second head start. So it's almost as if like your cheese got away from you and you have to go
Hmm.
get it. So it's like cheese chasing, really, more than cheese rolling.
Yep, yep.
Um, and it does look ridiculous and it does sound fun, but it actually is probably pretty dangerous. Like if you've ever tried to go down a hill, running down a hill, you're gonna like start tumbling pretty quickly and you're gonna really
Depending on depending on
how
how
steep it
steep the
is.
hill is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Exactly. So like the first attestation of the race was in the 1800s, but they think it's much, much older, which I could tend to believe that. This sounds like something that was like Middle Ages to me.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
seems like it would have been. Yeah, yeah.
something happened one day. Some guy's cheese wheel got away from him and he had to run down the hill and like, the neighbors across the other field were watching it and they were probably amused by it and they said, "Let's do that. That looks like fun. Let's
That
do
looks
that
like fun.
tomorrow."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There are many injuries, safety
Hmm.
concerns. Um, and actually there's one woman, like a cheesemaker in this town, who supplies the cheese like every year for the competition. She supplied it from the 1980s until her death in 21. And they warned her that she could be held liable for injuries, which
Crazy.
is like all she's doing is giving them, like, what is she, aiding and abetting? Like,
Yeah.
why would she be, why would she be held responsible for that? That doesn't seem fair.
Yep.
Let's see. So the question was, who has won the most
Right.
cheese rolling? I don't know if I
Yeah.
answered that, but Chris,
I did. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did. Oh, you did that one. Oh, Chris Anderson is a ground worker and a British Army veteran, best known for winning the annual cheese rolling at Cooper's Hill in Gloucestershire a record 23 times. So this guy is like that Jeopardy guy who just keeps winning.
Just winning and winning, winning.
And
Yeah.
they're like,
Probably
"Oh man.
trains all year for it,
Oh
you
my
know.
God." It's like, "Oh, him again." Well, we just don't stand a chance. That's so good.
There he is again. Brings his own
No.
cheese, so
Yeah. Yeah, Oh, he's got the double Gloucester. We're screwed.
yeah.
Did you see what the prize was? Do you win the cheese?
No, no, I didn't see what the prize was. It's interesting because I usually look when I looked at these things, I tried to see, okay, what do you win? A block of cheese? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, there it is. Yes. The first to get to the bottom of the hill is the winner,
Hmm.
and they win the cheese. They
Ah, there you go.
they
All
get to
right, so
keep
that
it.
makes sense. Yep, yep.
And that's good. That's a good kind of prize to have. And of course, I'm sure they get to be in the local newspaper, which is like a bigger deal for anybody in any of those small villages.
Yeah, they have bragging rights. Maybe
Yes.
have a T-shirt.
Get your
Uh,
picture taken and be like, I did win the cheese competition, actually.
I won the cheese competition, and all I got was this T-shirt. So,
Yeah, and an enormous wheel of cheese that I hope you like that
enormous
kind
wheel
of
cheese.
cheese
Yeah,
too. Like, because
yeah.
what if it's not the kind of cheese you
And
like?
I'm lactose intolerant. There you go.
Oh, geez.
Thanks.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if that exists in England because they're so into cheese there. Can you
Yeah,
imagine?
probably
Like,
not. Yeah.
can you imagine being lactose intolerant in England? It must be intolerable. What are you going to eat? They
Yes,
they do a
yes.
lot of cheese eating there, which is like that's my kind of place. But so yeah, there's that. What was the you want to do the next one?
Yeah, yeah. Air guitar world championships. It's like, I think we know about this because the air guitar thing is a big, big thing. It's kind of funny when I was looking at this, is there is a commercial that's running on TV. It's for a car commercial, and they're on this date. And this guy is saying, talking about all the things. He starts off, you're shorter than I thought you'd be. And he says, oh, did
Yes.
I tell you I was a air guitar uh, champion? And and oh, by the way, I
I
forgot
forgot my
my
wallet.
forgot my wallet.
And
Sugar
he's like,
mama.
sugar mama.
And
Yeah.
and the thing is, she has a remote control car that she pulls up,
Yes.
behind them and says, "Okay, excuse me a minute," and hops in her car and takes off. But
Yeah.
that just reminded me of that. And I said, "That's a pretty cute commercial."
It is.
Um,
Can I just tell you a little story about that commercial? As you know, Richard and I, when we're watching TV at night, we turn off the sound
mhm,
and we just watch subtitles. Well, all of our streaming services that we use, most of them, except for like Netflix or whatever, most of them have ads. And
mhm.
we've seen that ad
Okay.
on like Tubi or whatever,
Yeah.
but none of the commercials have subtitles.
Ah,
So you can
you have to
like
listen
you
to it. Yeah.
right, and so you can't hear it. You're watching it, you're getting the idea that she's just trying to escape from a date.
Yeah.
And the first couple of times it came on, Richard's like, that's really shitty. Like she's just abandoning him in the middle of a date. What a mean person and what a mean way to like, ditch somebody and they're advertising a car with it. And then I was like, yeah, and then we watched it with the sound and he
Mhm.
understood exactly why she was leaving. He was a piece of shit. Like he's just like, yeah, yeah, you're short. Yeah, all the things you said. Yeah, you're shorter than
Yeah.
I thought you'd be. And oh,
Yeah.
forgot my wallet. I guess you're sugar mama. She's like, I am so out of here. And she'd be justified. Like it is a crappy thing to like abandon your date in the middle of a date, unless that's happening.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and whoever did that, has probably had a crappy date just like that, and wanted
Yeah.
to abandon them, but didn't have the opportunity to do it. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, me and my friend, like I rescued my friend once. She wasn't having a great time on her date, so she texted me and asked me to call her with an emergency.
mhm.
And so I called and she put me on speaker and she didn't know I was going to be as creative as I was. I told her that I was in the Ocala National Forest and I was lost and I couldn't find my car and I can't find my clothes and I'm
uh,
naked and I'm in the forest and please help me.
oh
And I
yeah,
started crying and then I hung up. She
yeah.
left her
In
date.
my rescue thing was that there was a company I worked for when I was going to night school, and the other engineer, she was taking the same courses as me, and she was out, went to a thing in Boston with the boss,
Mhm.
and the boss is saying, hey, I got a hotel room, maybe we can go up and have
Oh
a
yeah.
drink, and all that stuff. And she says, no, 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 I got to study tonight, and she calls me and she says, yeah, do you remember we have to study tonight? So
Yeah.
I ended up having to meet her somewhere just to make sure she got home okay. And that
Oh,
was my rescue thing.
yeah, that's good that you
Uh,
rescued her because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and my other rescue thing, which Sue will talk about, is basically how we were first kind of met each other. Is that we were on one of these outings because we were in this group, and there was this guy that was hitting on her, but she was not interested in it.
Yeah.
And she couldn't. She was having trouble avoiding him on the hayride. And when we got back to the other person's house, and he kept wanting to hit on her to dance, so I just kept
She just
taking
kept
her
cutting in.
time to cutting in and taking her time to
That's
to
good.
dance and stuff, and
Why didn't she recruit
rescued
her
her.
kid? Like that's the perfect thing for parents without partners. Just make your kid have like, I don't know, can you fall down or something or have an emergency? Like,
Yeah, yeah, that would have been another way to go. But I think, it's just, I think that she might have had somebody babysitting her kid that
ah,
day, but these were adult parties we would go to, we'd
that's
go on an
true.
adult hayride, and then afterwards we'd go back to someone's house for, wine and cheese and stuff. And then,
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
so that's, so we all have those little things where we rescue somebody at some point, and,
Oh, absolutely.
um, and just,
Well, plus the way that my generation was raised,
mhm.
getting hurt as a kid was never an emergency anyway. You can just stop
Just
interrupting me. Put some dirt in
put
it.
on another Band-Aid. You know.
Yeah, rub some dirt in it. You have to
Yeah.
eat a peck of dirt before you die.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah. Just rub it, it'll go away, it's just,
Try- Trying to have my trying to have my bitch session with your auntie right now. Like every cookout, you could not get your mother's attention because she was way too busy like gossiping with the aunts about
Yep,
whoever wasn't there.
yep, that's for true. That's for true.
That's so funny. So yeah, air guitar, that's good.
Yep.
That one is held in Finland also, by the way. Which is
Okay.
like, okay, so we're just Finland and England. They just do all these. It's so good. Um,
Yeah, and you can imagine, it's just like, what are you judging on? Technical merit, stage president, or
yeah,
airness?
airness. Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that. Airness. That's nice.
Yeah.
And like
Well,
what do you now here's a good thing that they could do. I, I bet it would be really fun to do an air guitar competition where like charades where you had to guess the song.
oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
See, that would be good.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
You go in teams, right? You have teams of
Yeah.
two, and you have to air guitar a song to your teammate, and they have to figure it out, like the pyramid, where you
Yep.
have to you have to get them to say the answer, and Betty White has no idea what you're talking about, but you're doing like, come on, it's more than a feeling. Come on,
Yep.
everybody knows that. Tuna throwing
Oh, that's a
sounded
good one.
intriguing, but
Yeah.
like in my mind, it was just like hucking cans of tuna at a person because I am not a person of the world, I guess. And I just, when I think of tuna, I think of tuna in a can. But they're talking about like the big fish, which, by the way, aren't those huge?
Yes.
Tuna? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's in Australia. And to win the prize money in the male and female categories, competitors must fling a 10-kilogram frozen tuna as far as they can. So it's frozen.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much 10 kilograms is because I'm an American.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's a good point.
Should I Google it
That's
real quick?
yeah. I
Oh
don't
my
know that
God.
either. That's
We
yeah.
we are a learned
It's
bunch of
22
people.
pounds. It's 22
22
pounds.
pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's like a child. That's a good
Yep.
size tuna.
Yep. So it's child throwing contest.
Or
Okay.
like I'm pretty sure my biggest cat weighs about 22
There you
pounds.
go. That'd be a
Just kidding.
a competition, cat throwing contest.
That's too close to Steve Martin's cat juggling.
There you go. Yeah. And oh, but in the record is
Mm.
125 feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, when you have something like a tuna because of the shape of it, I bet the shot put method. Wait, no, that's not shot put. What is the Olympic sport where you do the spinning around and you throw it? Is that shot put?
Well, hammer throw,
Yeah, where
shot
you're
put, yeah,
shot put is
the shot put is too because they rotate around till they get the momentum to push it
oh,
out.
it is, but it's
Yeah,
just with the one hand.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, like if you're holding a tuna in both hands and spinning around a few times, I bet you could get some
Just
good air on that, right?
yeah, you probably could.
And but then
If it
like
doesn't slip out of your hand.
well, yeah, and then all I'm thinking of is the aftermath. Like it sounds like an episode of Mythbusters where they're like throwing food at a wall and measuring the velocity or something. That's going to be like messy, even if it's frozen, or it's going to
Even if
like
it's
punch a
frozen,
hole
yeah,
in the wall.
yeah, yeah. That'd be interesting. I don't know if yeah, I wonder if you'd probably be an event you would see it in Australia on TV. So
Oh yeah,
yes, it's the annual tuna throwing contest.
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Followed by the wife throwing contest.
Yes. And your wife has to weigh significantly more than a tuna, 5 times as much
So,
as a tuna.
right. Oh, we're getting
Oh,
silly here. Anyway,
that's good. This is a
yeah,
silly episode.
yeah.
This one's great. Extreme ironing. Which is like, so when I was a kid, I had various babysitters, but I remember I had one babysitter who used to come and she had me ironing stuff, which I don't think she was supposed to do because if I had a babysitter, I was probably like what, 4 or 5?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
This is when we were living, in Salem when I was little. And she had me ironing and I burned myself with the iron.
Hmm.
And I don't remember what we were ironing. We were probably just ironing back when you used to iron everything.
Oh yeah, I had to. Yeah, yeah,
So we were probably ironing handkerchiefs or napkins or something.
yep.
But yeah, so this extreme ironing is from England. It was said to have started in 1999, which is fairly recent, in Leicester by a man named Philip Shaw. And I guess he had had a bad day at work. He had a big, long day at work, and he had this huge pile of clothes that he had to iron. And he thought,
Hmm.
you know, wouldn't it be nicer if I could just do this in my back garden? So he decided to go out in his backyard and set up his ironing board and iron and everything. And like his friends came by while he was doing, like, what the hell are you doing? And he said, extreme ironing. And so they probably had a laugh and probably like 5 or 6 beers and came up with it as a sport. And the sport is actually, it actually is kind of extreme because you take your ironing board to like actually pretty dangerous locations, like the side of a mountain or like the middle of a busy highway or like in a forest or while canoeing or skiing
Wow.
or
Hmm.
doing like obstacle courses, and you do your ironing like while you're doing that.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah. They judge you based on like how neatly pressed your clothes are.
Right.
And also like probably like creativity and by time, like how quickly you can do it. I can't imagine it's very easy to do it in a canoe.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, there are different the areas where they've taken place. That's kind of weird. That they can
Yeah.
be in forests, on mountainsides, and
Yeah.
canoes, and skiing, and
Skiing
middle of
is
the street,
interesting.
underwater. Underwater. Come on.
Under what, like how I don't get it. But middle of the road,
What?
how do they sanction a competition in the middle of a busy highway? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah. And then there's one I've seen. There's like a guy is on water skis,
Yeah.
ironing. This is like seriously, dude. So.
You know what it sounds like? Do you remember the show Super Dave?
Oh yeah, yes, I do. Yeah.
When he was playing piano on top of a truck,
Hmm.
singing King of
Hmm.
the Road, and then he goes under a bridge and the bridge takes him out and the piano out and everything. Like there's like a picnic table and everything, and it all gets like swept up by the bridge. The
Yeah, it's weird stuff. And it's like when we look at these things, and I think when we talk about them, it occurs to me as we're talking about them is what would the prize be? And these are what the prizes are,
Yeah.
is that some people can get a washing machine,
Oh,
one competition, they can get other household goods, and sometimes they win vacations. So
that's
it's
actually nice.
yeah, that's actually kind of nice prizes. So I guess it'd be worth it, and it'd really be worth it if you have a really uh, backup load of laundry that you needed done. Just bring it to the competition.
Yeah, except if that were like my spouse or whatever, I'd be like, you are not taking my stuff to the side of a mountain
Yeah.
to iron it. You take the not nice clothes with you.
And these competitions are followed, yeah, they should be followed by extreme folding competitions.
Oh my
So,
God, no. I would never do it. I can't. Like the only reason I fold my clothes is because I live with Richard. Before I met him, this is how I would do laundry. I would put laundry in one machine, forget about it for 6 hours, put it in the other machine, forget about it for 6 more hours, have to run it through the dryer again because it's all wrinkled.
yep.
Take it out, put it in a basket, and that is where it stays until I have to put the clothes on in the
Yeah.
basket.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, that would be I think it'd be a good, good opportunity if you're one that doesn't like to do ironing, or if you still have clothes that need to be ironed, that you bring it to this competition, and then I'm serious that you would have a follow up competition, the best folder, and that kind of
That's
stuff.
good.
So
That's good. Yeah. And then you could like, I don't know, you could sponsor the team so that you wouldn't have
yeah,
to do it yourself. Yeah. I
that's
would
right.
sponsor somebody folding my laundry for me
Yeah,
because I
there you
hate
go.
doing it. I
Yeah,
really do.
yeah. I'll supply you with the iron and the ironing board. And here's my
Yeah.
clothes.
Ironically, I used to collect old irons as much as I hate ironing. I'm just not good at things like that. I can't do it. One of my previous spouses used to iron his jeans. He ironed everything, which
You
is
know, yeah,
like okay.
nobody irons jeans. I mean, yeah,
You don't
really.
have to.
No, you don't have to really. And oh, by the way, you wear it for a couple of weeks, you know. So
Oh, jeans, absolutely.
yeah,
Jeans, I, I can't, like the frequency in which you wash jeans is it's got to be like a scientific experiment somewhere, how long you
yeah.
could go.
Oh yeah, how long? Oh yeah.
And it's totally socially fine to never wash your jeans like
Yeah.
ever.
Well,
Oh,
they don't feel right. They don't fit right, you know. So
no, as soon as you wash them, they're off for at least a couple of days,
yep,
you know.
yep.
Do you want to do the next one? Have you ever heard of that one?
I
The
have
one that was
never heard
next?
of this one, but I've been kicked in the shin once or twice. This the shin kicking contest. Whatever.
Yes.
It was originated in England in the 17th century. It's considered a martial art.
Yep.
You know, you have two dudes uh, wearing white coats, holding each other by the shoulders and kick each other in the shins until one cries out, "Sufficient." That would be
Sufficient.
the word I would do. But
Well, they're English, so.
yeah, you know, the winner wins if they win 6 out of 10 times each round. You know,
Yep, because they have a
uh,
referee. Um,
yeah, and can you imagine? Originally, they wore steel-toed boots for this
yeah,
competition. Now,
yeah.
now they wear soft shoes and wear
Hmm.
padding on their legs, and ambulances are there, and
Yep, yep. Well, it used to be, it was a way they said, like with minors, in
Mhm.
some places in England, to resolve disputes. Kind of like how you said, you remember you told me once, like when you were a kid, to resolve disputes with your siblings, you were given boxing gloves.
Oh yeah, yep,
It was a way to resolve a dispute rather than just having a brawl. They would actually, okay, you have to have a rule. You have to put your hands, and they put their hands on each other's shoulders so that they can't, punch each other or whatever, and so that they're the right distance from each other.
right,
And obviously, like there's rules about it, like you're just kicking shins here.
yep,
You're not doing any unauthorized kicking. And originally it was about who could tolerate the pain the most,
yep,
and
and
who
that's
basically
yeah.
cried uncle, but they said sufficient, which is
Sufficient.
very
I know.
funny.
I know it. It's like you win. It's like you get a point every time your opponent falls to the ground, and
Yeah.
then you go through 3 rounds. And I imagine even going through 3 rounds, that'd be tough to do. And
Oh
this
yeah.
really kind of rules is you can't kick the opponent above or below the shin.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They must raise one leg and connect with the opponent's shin, and cannot push or kick the opponent to the ground.
Yep.
you know, Actually, this thing goes back to, yeah, the 17th,
Yeah. Probably even
1612.
further, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, yeah, from 1612 until 1850s. And it was revived again in 1951 as the World Championships.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
you know,
so there's a comedian that I really like. His most people, if you Googled him, if you watch anything British, you'd recognize him. He's in a lot of stuff.
mhm,
His name's Johnny Vegas, and he's known for having a very strong northern accent,
mhm,
country accent. And he was on that show that I like, QI, one time talking to Stephen Fry, and the subject was about shin kicking. And he's like, "Oh yeah, my uncle's one." But then he said later it was his father. I don't know. It was like either uncle or father was a competitive shin kicker, and they talked about the sport. And they would put like I'm sure now they have like actual padding that looks like hockey padding or something, but before
right,
they would
right.
just like stuff like hay in their breeches in order to pad them against like the shin kicks. And they do have to wear the soft shoes now, but yeah, there was a trend of them wearing steel-toed boots because it was more about the pain than anything else. Who could tolerate the most pain? Because this is like dudes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine
Yeah.
doing that for like, you know how they say that like football players retire in like their 20s and 30s because they're just too old to do it after being like knocked around for such a long time. Can you imagine like how long do you think you could get kicked in the shins professionally before you'd have
I,
to retire?
yeah, it would be a while. I wouldn't think you would last very long, Yeah, Jesus. It's just like the only in England they would have they have an arbiter which is basically a referee,
Yeah.
and the arbiter is called the stickler.
The
I
stickler.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
You
really
know what? I would not be surprised if that's where that term comes from, being a
huh.
stickler.
Yes, it could be. Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be. Yeah, and it's what's weird. I thought this was kind of funny. Orthopedic surgeons would probably love that championship. So.
Oh, absolutely. You get a lot of business from it. You know, I I have to say, I love England.
Yeah.
It's just the most fun and crazy culture, and especially country England. Country England is like my favorite England.
Yeah.
They just they are just something else there. And I just, these guys, and they're usually like farmers and stuff. They just
Hmm.
seem like they're the most interesting personalities you could ever meet. I don't know, I could watch them for days the way
Yeah,
they
and you
are.
you know you could very see that somebody they're having a fight, so they're kicking each other in the shin, and it's like a boxing match. They'll do
Right.
like 3 rounds or whatever they do, and then you could see someone says, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we make this a competition?" And the thing of it is it's funny with all this one here. I usually look to see if they win a prize, but I didn't see anything about win a prize. I guess the winning of prizes that come out without a broken leg, so
That, yeah. And maybe it's the local fame again, like
yeah,
to
the
be
fame,
the
yeah, you get a t-shirt or something, yeah,
you probably get some free drinks in the pub.
yep,
Um,
that's yep.
you get your picture up on the pub wall for the year
Hmm.
and stuff like that. I can imagine that's all a very large part of country life in England is local community, local
Right,
fame,
yep,
just kind of being the important one for a few months,
right, right,
which
exactly.
again, it's currently my favorite kind of culture. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's that. Another one from English country culture is the
Mhm.
worm charming championships.
Here we go.
Now, worms are cool because worms don't freak me out the way the bugs freak me out. And actually, Bev used to be like this too. Bev used to love being in the garden with me and pulling worms out and playing with the worms and stuff. But worms are actually very interesting. I mean, they're very useful. They're very good for the soil, very good for the environment.
Right,
But they're also, I guess, very predictable. And you can charm them out of the ground with vibration, which is really cool.
yeah.
And they do that for research. Like they'll have like a device that like does like a rhythmic vibration into the ground to
Hmm.
get worms to come to the surface so they can study them. But for this, they probably, they probably do like just thump their feet or thump a hammer onto the ground.
Well, yeah, some of the use a variety of techniques, like they
Hmm.
may tap the ground or hitting a stump or using knitting needles or stick a fork in the ground and wiggling it to create vibrations.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And this one, of course, started at a school fete. And a fete is like a fair, and again, this goes back to, I bet the origin of a lot of these old sports and old competitions definitely has that sort of county fair feeling.
Hmm.
Like I said, the Topsfield Fair, you have like tractor race, you have like the hay bale throwing and things like that, and the racing pigs.
Yeah.
And so it was started by the official rules were written by the headmaster of the school. So it was like, the school is having their little sort of town fair. And I guess I don't know. It doesn't say how it started, like who came up with the idea,
I actually, yeah, I thought maybe that a headmaster of school come up with it for some reason.
but but
Uh,
like out of what?
he probably saw some kids playing with worms, and
Yeah.
they got the worms to do something, and said, hey, this might be a nice competition. There's a record for this. A 10-year old did it. Sophie Smith. She charmed 567 worms.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and basically what they win is they win this trophy. Obviously that's what you win
Yeah.
for it. I always look at that. They win the trophy, and they get. I joke about this. They have a T-shirt for participating,
Oh, yes.
and so the trophy is basically a block of wood with a round piece of dirt with a stick sticking out of it. And
Oh,
this is
that's cute.
that's yeah, yeah. So this is which is to symbolize the worms
Yeah, coming out of the
coming out of the
thing.
dirt. you know,
Oh, that's
and
cute.
that's kind of cute, and again, you are every time we look at these, I keep going back to the same thing. It was said, okay, what do they win for this,
Right.
and and I joke about a T-shirt, but this is just participating. You get a T-shirt, so
Yeah, I feel like if I won one of those kind of competitions, I'd be proud to wear that t-shirt next time I went
yeah.
out shopping or whatever. And I'd be like, that's right. I am the worm charming competitor and that I won in 1997. Thank you very much.
And at the end, you could read this. The worms. What happens to the
Yes.
worms at the end?
Yeah. So, okay. So, well, they have a 3 by 3 meter plot of land,
Hmm.
and they are allowed to use vibrations, but not drugs, whatever that means.
Yep.
They're not allowed to dig in the dirt to get the worms. And then at the end, when all these worms are coming up out of the ground, they return them
Hmm.
to the area, but only after a certain time of night when the birds have gone to roost, because they have no intention of providing a feast for the birds. Which is like that goes to animal cruelty kind of thing. You don't want to get a whole bunch of worms out of the ground and then just feed them to birds as at the end of your contest. That's kind of cruel. Even if you don't think worms are important, it's still animal cruelty.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. When I was a child, I'm not a serial killer or anything, but I had some mild animal cruelty in my days as a child. We used to, like, of course, kids like, set fire to ants and smash bugs and things like that. We lived on the ocean, and so me and my friends used to hold races with the periwinkles, which are little snails that live in the little tide pools in
Yeah.
in New England. And you take your periwinkles and you line them all up, and they have to race on the rock. And we used to smash the losers with a and the winner was allowed to live. And I remember one time, like, my mom was dating somebody who had a kid, and I was quite a bit older, and I was older, but guess not old enough to realize that that was cruel. And I showed her how to do it. I showed her how to do the race and how to smash them. And her father came over and told her that that wasn't very nice, and let's stop doing that now. Oops. Sorry.
Oops. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know. I'm a bad influence. Worm charming. If you're ever bored on the weekends,
It charms some worm.
you could do that next one. I
Yeah,
think.
toe wrestling. You know,
Yeah,
and that's that was started in a pub in England in the
of course.
'70s, and really the reason they started it, these drinkers were like they were frustrated about the World Cup and they wanted a sport in which the British would dominate. And then ironically, the first winner was Canadian, but
That's
you know,
good.
it's really kind of funny. It's just before they start, they inspect for warts and infections, and you can't use stimulants. And when it starts, the officials yell "toes away."
Toes away.
It's an annual event. And what's kind of funny is it's like it's held in Derbyshire, England, and the most prolific championship was Alan Nasty Nash. I wonder why they call him Nasty.
'Cause he's
He had
cute looking.
14 wins. He was called Golden Toes. Another toe wrestler who was successful was Lisa Twinkle Toes Sheldon. Ben Total Destruction Wolford, and this Alan Nasty Nash and Ben Total Destruction Woodruff are the co-owners of the World Toe Wrestling Federation, train regularly and have suffered toe wrestling injuries. Uh,
No.
he's broken his toe at least. Nash has broken his toe at least 4 times, and
Wow.
Woodruff's ankle is snapped in 2 places,
Oh
and
my
has had
God.
his toenails surgically removed, which is probably a good thing because you could cut it. I've seen some pretty sharp toenails. You could cut into somebody with that.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, when you break your toe, the only thing I've ever broken is my two big toes.
Yeah,
And the one on my left, when that broke, it broke where the nail was and the nail came off.
yeah.
And it's never grown in right since. And I have so many problems with that
So
toe.
here's another interesting thing, and
Yeah.
think see if this reminds you of it. The way this is a three. They do it 3 rounds. The
Yeah.
rest the wrestlers alternate. first you put the right foot in and then the left foot again.
Do they shake it all about? That's really
Oh,
good. You know
yeah.
that you know what they call that particular rhyme in England?
What's that?
It's not the hokey pokey, it's the hokey cokey.
Hokey cokey. Oh,
Hokey
wow.
cokey. We were just talking about that yesterday. How
Uh,
about how like, when I was with somebody who was from another country and we were doing like a Zoom call with some friends over there
yeah.
and they had a kid and the
Mm,
kid was spending the entire Zoom call
yeah.
running and grabbing things from the house and putting him in the camera going, "What do you call this? What do you call this?" And he brought out some dish soap and he's like, "What do you call this?" And I said, "Well, that's dish soap." And they all laughed at me. Dish soap. That's ridiculous. You call it dish soap? And I'm like, "Yeah, what do you call it?" And they're like, "Nothing so silly. We call it fairy liquid." Well, okay.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm the silly one for
Yeah,
calling it
yeah,
dish soap
yeah,
because I wash the dishes with the soap for the
yeah.
dishes.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah. That's kind of funny. Yeah, you know, and really that's so, some of these things are just it is the weird world of sports, and there's
It's so
probably
good.
others, but
Yeah, there's
these are the
others.
ones
And of course,
we
the
kicked off.
famous, yep. And of course, the famous American one was the one I talked about in our opening fact, which is the frog jumping.
Frog throwing, frog, yeah,
No, no,
jumping.
stop
See, I
throwing
did it
everything.
again.
You're so violent. You just want to throw everything.
Let's drop kick a frog. No,
It was the frogs jump on their own. But it's okay.
uh,
My dad's a serial killer,
yeah,
apparently. Let's do a true crime podcast, Dad.
yeah,
It's all started with frog throwing.
yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah, so
graduated to wife throwing,
wife
and
throwing and all kinds of other. He's just throwing everything around,
uh,
throwing tuna at his wife. Just tell her you're doing it next time you get mad at Sue. Just throw something at her and tell her it's a competition. And
competition. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. That's funny.
yeah, so the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County,
Yeah.
which the competition is still going on, and they have very strict rule in that competition because of the story. And if you're familiar with the story, basically the main character won the competition by overfeeding the competitor's frog so that he was too heavy to jump. He like
Okay.
fed him. He made him so that he couldn't jump anymore because he was too heavy. And that's actually a literal rule in the guidelines of the Calaveras County frog jumping race is that you cannot weigh down your frogs. It's against the rules.
Cool.
So I thought that was good. That was a Mark Twain story. One of my favorites when I was a kid. But yeah, so competitions and I feel like this is something we could probably do again. We could probably
Oh
come up
yeah.
find a
Well, we'll
bunch
find.
more.
Yeah, we'll find other special sports.
They're great. I love it.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it's kind of in line in even though these took place like everywhere else but America, there's a lot of them in America. It's kind of in line with the another subject I'd like to do in the future, which is roadside attractions.
Oh,
Weird.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the biggest ball of twine, and things like that.
It's interesting. This is not probably not a world competition, but where I grew up in the city, uh, we used to play. People played stickball,
Oh yeah.
and when we played stickball, basically, you get a broomstick and a pimple ball.
Mhm.
It's a rubber ball, and
Okay.
what ended up happening was that the pimple ball, the rubber ball, would break after a while. It would
Mm,
break in half. So we started playing a game called half ball,
half ball.
which is basically you would you think about it, it'd be like skipping stones or something like that when you
Yeah.
or a saucer, and you would throw it, and then you had to hit the half ball with a stick. And when there was actually a film that was on Facebook that we had a competition. There was a competition in Charlestown. This is Charlestown, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
which was a half ball tournament. And basically, there was we'd play across the street from the high school, and a single would be the first floor, double would be the second floor. If you
Oh,
hit,
yeah. You hit
yeah,
it
yeah,
up against the building or whatever.
and
Yeah.
it was actually it was a competition, and again, this all kind of evolved from getting the most use out of the ball.
That's
So anyway,
fascinating. And that
yeah,
I bet there's a whole wealth of information about specifically city origins for games like that. Because
yes,
when you're in
yep,
the city, now in the country is one problem because you're like
right,
bored. There's nothing to
mhm,
do. But in the city, there's an aspect of making do and playing with the stuff that's around you. Where you're in a city, you got a bunch of like sticks and rocks and stuff, and you create a game out of it. That would be a fascinating twist on those kind of games is the ones that originate specifically in cities like that.
yeah, yeah, and they have, quite frankly, you could find if you Googled it, you would see they had the World Half Ball Tournament in Charlestown, Mass, in 1983,
Wow.
and then South Philly had one in 2023, and they also had one in 2011. So,
That's
um,
fascinating. I never heard about that.
yep, yep. And Chronicle in Massachusetts and Boston, they did an episode about
I
half
remember.
ball back in 2018.
I remember
So
Chronicle. Chronicle was a good show.
yeah. So some people called it. Philly tried to say it was their game. They said it went back 70 years, and half ball went back. For us, probably close to that. The townies did it, as I say, Charlestown. It's like it's half ball is like stick ball with a ball cut in half, just like I described it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really kind of a cool little thing,
that is
which,
cool.
yeah, I tell people about that. They talk about playing stickball. I say, did you ever play half ball? And I got to tell you, it's really it's weird to see, you get that, you throw it with like a snap of your wrist, and
Yeah.
it sort of sails just like a saucer, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it.
Well, that
And
and then it's like once a ball is broken in half, I imagine it would land funny and stuff, and it would go in weird directions.
yep,
It's a
yep,
rubber ball. Yeah, so
yep,
that's a whole other twist too, is like the weird sort of
the
aerodynamic
weird,
qualities of it and
yep.
also like the physical
Yep.
properties of how it would land and bounce and things. So
Yeah, and
that's
you could if you get
yeah.
really good at it, you could, like throwing a frisbee.
Yeah.
Actually, that's really closest to it. You could throw it low and get it to sail up high. So it's really kind of cool thing.
That is
Anyway,
really
that's
cool. And
yeah,
and it's very funny how there's inevitably two towns that claim it. Kind of like
yes,
everything else.
yes,
Everything, especially in the Northeast.
yep,
Which reminds me, I don't know if you're aware, Kelly's roast beef was just sold to like a corporation.
really. Oh,
Yes.
yuck.
I know,
Uh,
I know. And
uh,
Kelly's roast beef, it reminds me of that because Kelly's is one of those places that said that they invented the roast beef sandwich. And of course, if you go anywhere in New England, there's 12 other places that say
that's
they
right.
invented the roast beef sandwich.
Yeah, and it's funny because they are the thing about Kelly's roast beef. I think there was two things that were unique. One was the peppers that they used, pepper that they used on the roast beef itself,
Mm,
cut, and it was sliced super thin, and
yeah,
then there was a sauce they put on it,
yeah.
and a
So
special barbecue sauce. But I've had roast beef sandwiches in other places in Massachusetts that were equal to Kelly's roast beef.
yeah. Well, that James
Uh,
River barbecue sauce is like famous in New England. They like love
mhm,
that stuff. But
yep.
I will say that there's something I can't get behind as a New Englander is that roast beef three-way. It's just gross to me. It's too much mess.
Oh, yeah, they get, yeah.
Because a roast beef three-way is like the sauce and
Mhm.
cheese and also mayonnaise.
Oh, yeah, they don't do. I do it with the. Sometimes I do it with cheese, but most of the time it's just the sauce, and the sauce is not, I can't think of the name of the sauce. There's one particular sauce
Well, the
that
big
was
one is
used.
the big one is the James River. It's like not a sweet sauce. It's
Mm,
like it's not exactly tangy either. It's not spicy. It's vinegary, I would say.
yeah,
It's like a vinegary barbecue sauce. And they had it, Bill and Bob's used to have that too,
yeah,
that
yeah,
sauce.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, when we have gone back to Massachusetts, we have things on our list of things to have. There's a
Oh
roast
yeah.
beef sandwich, fried clams,
Yep.
and Chinese food, and
Yeah.
actually steak tips.
Steak
Those
tips.
kind
I
of
am so mad about steak tips down here. They do
yeah.
not know how to do it. I don't, and I can't convince Richard. He doesn't understand. He's like, no, steak is steak. And I'm like, that is absolutely false. You go up to New England, you can get one steak tip is like a half a pound. They're huge.
It's interesting because I actually bought steak tips and had them shipped down to us
Oh yeah.
from Tuckaway Tavern.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, Tuckaway Tavern was on Guy Fieri's show one time.
Oh yeah, I think you
And
told me that.
yep, they were famous. That Tuckaway Tavern, they started out as a butchery. And then there was one set of owners that decided to make a restaurant because the meat was so popular. So they did a restaurant, but whoever started the restaurant didn't know how to do it, and it ended up going out of business after a while. And then another group took over, and they did it right. They had the butchery as the center part of it, but when they did the restaurant, they did it up the way the people
Oh
were
yeah.
looking for it to be done, like pub style. And that's why Guy Fieri ended up doing a show about them.
Oh yeah, that place is
And
popular. And somebody I
yeah,
went to high school with who lived where you guys used to live, they
mhm.
used to go there all the time. And everybody in that area talks about that restaurant. They love it there.
Oh yeah, it's like one time we were talking to a gentleman I work with, and they were down in Massachusetts and Tuckaway Taverns, and it's way up in New Hampshire, not way up in New Hampshire, but it's
Like an
just
hour.
south of Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Um, and he was talking about this restaurant he went up to New Hampshire to go to, and he told me, I says, "Oh yeah, that's in the town I live in," So
Isn't that funny? Isn't
yeah,
that so funny? And when
yeah,
people, we have a lot of Massachusetts people who come down here and I talk to them and say, yeah, my parents lived in New Hampshire for a while. They're like, where? And I say the town and they're like, oh yeah, we used to live there. I'm like, how do you pick that town? It wasn't like a big town.
no, it
Eh,
wasn't.
But everybody lived there at one point. Like
At one
everybody
point or another, yeah.
is kind of like when I lived in Salem, everybody lived on my street for a while.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, it's
weird.
funny, that people would gravitate to it. I think what happens is they move north, and then they find there really isn't much in that area. Then
Yeah.
they'll either go more isolated or more city again,
Yeah.
depending on what their thoughts are of living in the country, because that's basically what it is, the country. But
Yeah, pretty
anyway,
much
yeah.
that town you lived in is very similar to where you live now, but
Mhm.
not the part you live in now. Like the town you live in now has parts that are very New Hampshire like.
Yes,
Um,
and that's what attracted us to the area.
yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. And just like how Daytona reminds me of Salem, it's just bigger. It has the
Yep.
same kind of feel where it's
Yep.
like touristy and it's got a mix of different types of people, which is nice. And it also has a mix of different like income classes, which is nice because it's not a hoity-toity area and it's not like the hood, It's like
Yeah, but
all of it.
Salem, even though Salem was a city, we're talking Salem, Mass.
Yeah.
Salem, the city, it was really kind of isolated from
Mhm.
other parts of uh,
Yeah.
Massachusetts, and you always just said you couldn't get there from here because it
So
was
they
so difficult
blocked.
to get in and out of it. But it was one of
Yeah.
those places where it was a good walking town because everything was really kind of centrally located. And I said town, but it really was a city. So
Yeah, there's the parts I miss about Salem are the historical parts, and there's a lot of pretty spots there and
yep.
just interesting businesses and things like that. But the culture of it that I lived in, I lived outside when I was a kid, we lived right near all the nice
Oh yeah, we
historical
live
parts.
downtown. Yeah,
We live
yeah.
downtown. But when I was an adult, I lived more in the South Salem, sort of outer residential areas that were more like you go one street over and you're in trouble kind of areas.
Right. Yeah,
My street's fine. It's nice and quiet, but one street over, just don't go out at night and things like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's our that's our episode, I guess, folks. My notes closed up, and now for some reason my phone's going on to DoorDash, but okay. Uh, I hope you guys had as much fun as we did. Please send us an email at mochiverse@gmail.com. That's MOCCIAVERSE@gmail.com. And if you can, head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating and a review. You can subscribe to us on there, and that way you can get all the episodes when they come out. Or however you listen to podcasts, make sure you subscribe to us so that you can get our episodes when they come out every 2 weeks. And we'd like to hear from you, see if this is something worth listening to. But I know there's something that you think is worth listening to, Dad.
Yes, in keeping with the sports theme.
Oh, sports theme. Okay, here we go.
Yes. Why did the baseball player get fired?
Why?
He ran 3 bases, then walked home.
Okay.
And why don't fish play basketball?
Why?
Because they're scared of the net.
Oh, poor fishies.
And why do fathers take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing?
Why?
In case they get a hole in one.
Oh, duh.
What did the sprinter eat before the race?
What?
Nothing. They fast.
Oh, they fast.
They fast.
That's good. I like that one.
My dad told me a joke about boxing.
Hmm.
I guess I missed the punchline.
Oh, okay.
I don't play soccer because I enjoy the sport.
Yeah.
I just doing it for the kicks.
For the kicks.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where do basketball players go when they need a uniform?
Where?
New Jersey.
Isn't that like what did Delaware,
Yeah.
New Jersey, Idaho, Alaska?
Yeah. Yeah. And why don't football players wear glasses?
Why?
It's a contact sport.
Oh my God.
That's a true dad joke,
That's a
get
very
you
good
roll your
one.
eyes doing, oh God, crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good one. All right,
All right.
folks, I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I've got a little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow.
Well, my headphones fell off. Okay. I got so
Uh,
excited about worms.